نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي ربي زدني علما اللهم فقهنا في الدين اللهم إني أسألك علما نافعا وعملا متقبلا ورزقا طيبا اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا علما. Inshallah, we will be starting from ayat number 190, Surah alBaqarah today. The topic for the ayats that we will be covering today is related to the Qitaal, which is one kind of subset of jihad. So the word jihad comes from jahad. Jahad means to struggle, to work hard. So jihad basically is taken as a very controversial word because of thinking that it just means like killing people and stuff. Jihad means to work in the way of Allah if we take it in the context of Islam as well. And this could be jihadun nafs. It would be like when some person is trying to work on their salah, if they are not able to pray, for example, all 5 salah, and they are like trying to make themselves more disciplined, setting alarms, setting up their proper sleeping time, waking up time, and all these. Also, it is also jihad to stop yourself from bad habits of anger or backbiting or lying or anything like that. So anything where you have to struggle to be able to either do more. So volunteering somewhere is also jihad because you're taking out time from your busy schedule to go clean the masjid or do things like that. So jihad has many forms. A person who writes about Islam, whether articles or books, that is also jihad. A person who goes to the masjid and teaches is also a jihad because you're working to spread Islam, to strengthen Islam, any of these forms. So Qitaal is one of the subset of jihad. Qitaal is the actual going to the battleground and fighting in the way of Allah using the weapon as soldiers, as army. And over here in the next 4-5 ayats, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling Muslims, we are in this part of the history where Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Muslims have migrated from Mecca to Medina because of the persecution from the Meccans, the mushrikeen, the polytheists of Mecca. And around after 1.5 years, around 2 years, they are going to be having the Battle of Badr soon. This is kind of a command for the Muslims, some of the Muslims, because everyone is different, right? So we would find most of the people who would be scared of going and fighting, especially if they were not trained as soldiers from years and years and years, right? And the other factors could be like, by default, number one, nobody like really loves to go and fight and put their lives in danger. Number two, these were not like trained as army people from the start as such. Number three, they knew that if they go to fight in the battleground, they will be fighting their own brothers and fathers and cousins and all those people who, because when Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam became a prophet, some people became Muslims and some people didn't in Mecca. So people had family members, and like some fathers had one son Muslim and one still non-Muslim, and there would be fight between them, and one of them will live and one will die. So it was a very hard time in all kinds of emotional, physical, financial, all kinds of aspects. And unless and until there was a real push from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala coming as a command, Muslims would not be so motivated to go and fight in the way of Allah. So over here we will see, so this is a general background that I gave you. A little bit of more specific background would be that Muslims have migrated, and in this ayat number 189 you would see that they are asking about the crescent and the months, the holy months, and I have probably told you that from the time of Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he made the Holy Kaaba, then it was established that the attacks on the caravans will not be made in these following 4 months, which are Ziqad, Zilhajj, Muharram, which were assigned for the Hajj time period, and then Rajab as the Umrah time period. So these 4 months were supposed to be taken as sacred months. And of course, besides the war like coming closer, the reason also for the war, one of the reasons was, besides the persecution and the whole thing, like they had to leave their city, their businesses, their houses, their families, in like when you have to leave everything where you have been, you established your work, your jobs, your trade, everything is set up, you have houses, you have family over there, everything is going fine, but just because you become Muslim and you are tortured and it becomes difficult for you to leave. So that's really sad. And people, of course, while some people were not very happy about fighting, there were some people, some of the Sahaba, companions of the Prophets, who were really very happy to get this command. So one more reason to wanting to go and have an intrinsic drive to fight was also because they knew that they would have to go for Hajj at some point. And for that, they were concerned if they travel, and they knew that the Meccans are going to attack them. And of course, those will be the month of Hajj. So they wanted to know, as we see in 189, that they are already, it's been discussed what about the sacred months and all. And in the following ayats that we will do today, we will see that they actually, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them a guideline that if the non-Muslims attack and fight during the sacred months, then you can fight back. You do not have to initiate the fight in those holy months, but if they do attack you, if they do fight, then you are allowed to fight. And another topic that is covered in the following 4 or 5 ayats is also that besides the time of the year that is sacred, there is also the place, the haram near the Kaaba. It is also sacred. So what do you do about that? What if they start fighting over there? Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also, as you will see in the following ayats, that Allah allows them that again, do not initiate the fight, but if they do fight you near Kaaba, then you are allowed to fight back. Okay, Auzubillahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Ayat 190. Wa and qatilu, qaf ta lam qatl, and fight fi in sabilillahi. Sin ba lam is the root, which means way, Allahi, in the way of Allah. Alladhina, those who, yuqatilunakum, qaf ta lam, again those who fight you, wala, and do not ta'atadu. So ta'atadu means like transgress. The root is ain dal vav. You will see the derivations of ain dal vav in many forms. This means that do not transgress. Inna Allah, indeed Allah, la, not, does not, yuhibbul mu'tadin. Yuhibbu, the root is ha baba, which means love. He does not like al-mu'tadin, those who transgress. So in this ayat, there are few parts. The first one is that fight in the way of Allah, which means that the goal of fighting should only be to be in the way of Allah. You should not fight for your personal reasons, personal agenda. This is not allowed. Only in the way of Allah. So it should be very clear. And we understand this from some of the stories of Sahaba, where they were in the midst of a fight where it started to become their personal bias, and then they stopped fighting because they thought that this is like conflicting my interest towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clarifies it over here also, because as I already mentioned, always you will see people having different levels of iman, people having different opinions about fighting and not fighting, and allies with people. So politics is also always going to be different opinions, but whenever there is a leader, we're supposed to follow the command. So over here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this, so the intention is very clear, and people do not have any revenges that they are taking from people just because anything that they remember and they don't like about somebody. So the first part is pretty clear. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that your intention should be only in the way of Allah. And then fight whom? Allazina yuqatilunakum. So it's not something that you just go and fight and start killing people. It is against the people who fight you. Okay? And I want to clarify this, so because people have this kind of, there are many misconceptions about the Qitaal and about the jihad. So over here you can see people do take things out of context and make different meanings and stuff, but over here you can see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions first the intention is clear, then the fight those people who fight you, and then wala ta'tadu. The third part is extremely beautiful. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions do not transgress. So don't go beyond the boundary that you're allowed to. You might have heard the quotes, everything is allowed in love and war. No, in our religion, we are not allowed that. We know that even during war, we have some boundaries that we take care of, we keep in mind. And from the hadith and from the other commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also, we understand better what the ta'tadu means. The army is not supposed to fight the civilians, they're not supposed to kill the civilians, and they're not supposed to kill women and children. They're not supposed to kill the religious scholars, even from other religion, the rabbis and priests and monks. You're not supposed to kill them or hurt them. Even from the opposite army, you see anyone who's handicapped or who's injured, you're not supposed to fight them, you're supposed to leave them. And if you're fighting in their land, you're not supposed to burn any trees or the fields or any construction, any buildings, any factories, anything that is productive. You're supposed to fight with the army and not go around destroying the city, the land, the provisions for people. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes three things very clear in this ayat. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, Inna Allaha la yuhibbul mu'tadin. Because people might be biased. People were extremely angry also because they had to leave their houses with leaving behind all the whatever furniture or whatever carpets, whatever valuables that they had, whatever people collect and have things. They were of course not going to be able to carry everything to Medina. So even if they were doing really well in Makkah, they just had to leave everything for their religion just because they wanted to become Muslims. They had to leave everything, and those people were enjoying their hard-earned money, hard-earned things. So let's go to 191. وَقَتُلُهُمْ, and kill them. Qatl is the root. حَيْثُ, wherever. ثَقِفْتُمُوهُمْ, ثَقِفْتُمُوهُمْ, wherever you find them. The root is ثَقَفَ, which means finding or dominant, wherever you find them dominant basically. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells them, the Muslims, that you should kill them wherever you find them, which again in the context it is supposed to mean that some people were going to be facing this difficulty to kill their family members and their cousins, their friends. Everyone would be in the battlefield opposite to each other, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala encourages them that this is not a personal fight, so don't worry about it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written down your intention that you're fighting in the way of Allah. So kill them haisu sakiftumuhum, wherever you find them on the battleground. Wa akhrijuhum, and kharajim. Kharaj means to exit or to drive them out, and drive them out. Min, from, haisu, wherever, akhrajukum, wherever they drove you out. Kharaj, root. So they made you leave your houses, so you're allowed to kill them, so they leave their houses and drive them out from there. Wal fitnatu, and the fitna, fatan means any challenge or oppression. Ashaddu, Sheen dal dal, meaning is more severe, is worse. Minal from qatli, from the killing. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells them that the fitna is severe, more, it's worse than killing. So if people are having second thoughts of should we go and kill them, or because they were our tribe, they are the people from Quraysh, should we go and kill them actually? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling them that fitna is worse than killing. So killing is okay now. You are allowed to, you are commanded to kill. And what does fitna mean? Fitna means to oppress someone from, in this context, accepting Islam, from not having the freedom of thought, not having the freedom of religion, not having the freedom to choose your religion. So just because people wanted to follow a faith which was not the faith that the whole tribe was following, they were giving them a hard time. In fact, it was difficult for them to even live in this land. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling them that you're supposed to fight them and kill them because the fitna, the oppression that they're spreading, the scare that they're spreading in people from becoming Muslim is worse. So you are supposed to kill them. Wala, and do not tuqatiluhum, do not you kill them, fight them in the near al masjid al haram. So you should not fight near the Masjid al Haram. Do not fight them near the Kaaba. Hatta, until and unless yuqatilukum, they fight you fihi, in it. See, I told you that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed them if the other party, if the enemies fight them over there. Although this is a very sacred place, they were not supposed to fight there. فَإِن, and then if قَاتَلُوكُمْ, they fight you, فَقْتُلُوهُمْ, then kill them. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is allowing them, repeating, so there is nothing vague about it. It's all very clear that okay, they are actually allowed. كَذَلِكَ, such, جَزَاءُ, this is the result or the reward, al-kafirin, of the disbelievers. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes sure that Muslims understand that if the kafir, if the enemies do that, then you should not just stand there and get killed. You are allowed to fight, and in fact you should kill them because this is what they deserve to get none. Then 192, for, then, in, if, intahaw, Nun ha ya is the root, which means if they stop, if they cease. فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ, so indeed Allah, Ghafurur Rahim, is forgiving. Rahim is most merciful, repeatedly merciful. So now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, again, remember in the very first ayat that we did today, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells them not to transgress. Over here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells them that do not get carried away just because if they have initiated fight, that okay, now we got the start, we're going to keep killing them, keep killing them, keep killing them. No, still keep using your brain. If they cease, what does cease mean? It could mean both. It means either they submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if they do become Muslim, or even some of the mufassirin, some of the scholars say that intahaw over here also means that if they even cease, stop the oppression. If they say, okay, no more, we're not going to torture you guys, no, we're not going to bother anyone who becomes a Muslim. So if they cease, can mean both the things. Number one, either they become Muslim and completely submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or even if they stop the fitna, even if they stop the oppression, then what are the Muslims supposed to do? They're supposed to stop. They're not supposed to keep going. They're not supposed to keep killing, thinking that they are winning anyway, so they should just keep killing. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells, you see a Muslim mind, how we are programmed to work if we follow Quran and if we follow the Hadith. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not want us to be mindless at anything that we do. Even if it is war, which was initiated and they are fighting and they have done everything bad to Muslims, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us to use our brains even at that time. That keep in mind that if they do stop, if they want to submit, you should give them the chance to do that. Then ayat number 193, وَقَاتِلُوهُمْ, and fight against them. Hatta, until, la, not, takuna, kafa noon is the root, there is fitnatun, there is oppression, wa, and yakuna becomes, again kafa noon is the root, ad-deena lillahi, the deen becomes for Allah. So this ayat is for an ongoing, general behind the scenes a battle that will before that till 192 were the ayats very specific to the conditions of the Muslims in those times, right? Right after the migration. And this next ayat means generally there will be fight in the land for the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if the non-Muslims wherever they start oppressing Muslims just for being Muslims, then you are allowed to fight back. Okay, so I'll read it again. وَقَاتِلُوهُمْ hatta la takuna fitna. Keep fighting them until there is no fitna, or and vayakun al dina lillahi, and the deen becomes for Allah. So you can take both or either one, that the deen everywhere there is the religion of Allah, which is Islam, or if they stop the oppression, if they allow Muslims to be Muslims and follow their religion freely. For in and if antahaw, if they cease, fala, then no, udwana, hostility. So udwan means, again it is derivation of the same ain dal waw. So do not show any hostility illa except ala zalimin, to the zalim. So unless people are zalim, unless people are still oppressing, are torturing, persecuting, you are not supposed to show them hostility. You're supposed to live in a peaceful manner, in a decent way, how people live. And but if they are showing this problem, then you're supposed to fight back. Then the last ayat for today, ayat number 194, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala summarizes for them. Ash-shahrul haramu, shahr means month. So the sacred month, bish-shahril haram, is for the sacred month. So basically sacred month is supposed to be taken sacred till the others are taking it sacred. So sacred month is for sacred month. Wal hurumatu, and for all the haram things. Hurumat means something violating those hurmat, okay, violating that respect, the sacredness. So what to do with the violations? Wal hurumatu qisas, there is a legal retribution, there is a allowed to take the revenge. Qisas is exact revenge, nothing more, nothing less, right? And so wal hurumatu qisas, so when there is violation, then there is qisas. That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying. So basically giving them more clarity on how much they can fight, where they can fight when there is a sacred land. If they are fighting, you can fight. If there is a sacred month, if they are fighting, you can fight. So if they violate the hurumat, then there is qisas, there you can do the legal, it's legal to retribute. فَمَنْ اعْتَدَى, for then man, whoever i'tada, transgresses, alaykum, upon you, fa'atadaw alayhi, then you transgress on them. So basically see how far they go, you can just do that. You are allowed to do that. Be mithli, just in the same manner. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes sure that we Muslims still have the control over themselves. They do not become angry and so upset that they will just not have any limits to how much they can harm the other person. Okay, so bimithli, ma, as tada, as they transgressed. So the other party, whichever limit they went to, you're allowed to go to that limit. Alaykum, upon you. Wattaqullaha, and it's a very beautiful reminder, in the midst of fight, in the midst of argument, which we are supposed to remember that fear Allah. Remember that we are doing everything for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Remember Allah is watching you. Don't think that, okay, who knows what happened. The commander of chief will not find out ever what the other person did and what I did. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will. So wattaqullah, and fear Allah. Have the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wa'alamu, and know and have the ilm, ain lam mim, annallaha, indeed Allah is ma'a, with al-muttaqeen, with the people who are pious, people who fear him, people who are mindful of them, people who are aware that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordered me something, I will stay within those limits. I will not break the boundaries that Allah has given for me. So I hope we can see that if in the midst of the battle also, Allah is reminding the Muslims that it is important to have the taqwa, to have the piety, then what should be our behavior in normal life when we are not even standing in the battlefield? when we are just dealing with normal people? Should we have no limits with our anger? Should we have no limits with our misbehavior? Or should we also be more mindful about everything that we do, inshallah?